everyone, and welcome to this main stage session on raising healthy children. I want to start by applauding the World Economic Forum. I think this is the first session in the forum's history on children's health on the main stage, and we think this is very, very important. As you can see, we have a very dynamic panel. We want the session to be interactive and focused on practical action. So I'll ask one round of questions, and then we're going to open it up to the floor, take 2 or 3 questions, and then open it to the panel and keep coming back to you. So get ready, prepare your questions, and ask them. I'm Josette Sheeran. I'm the head of the World Food Program. In the World Food Program, we see a lot in the developing world of what we'll talk about today. We know that we're reaching 50 million children a year that are facing urgent issues of malnutrition and hunger. And we know in the world today there's more than 200 million children whose minds and bodies are stunted and who lose a chance at a healthy life very early in age, especially under 2, without adequate nutrition. Children's brains and bodies, we now know, can never recover from the loss during that period. I call this and the other information we have the burden of knowledge. Today we know that without specific interventions, children lose a chance at a healthy life, and this is not only an issue of compassion, but also one for finance ministers and presidents and prime ministers. The loss to GDP has been estimated by my program, but by others at 6 to 11% of GDP that a country loses if children are unhealthy and bring that into adulthood. And we know for one economy alone that it equals over $20 billion a year. The issue really is, are there deployable solutions? Is the knowledge we have deployable? And also, the dilemma we have of the undernourishment in parts of the world and the overnourishment, if we will, in other parts of the world, the richer world. And today we're going to cover the whole spectrum. And so we know today in many richer economies, we're seeing diabetes in children, we're seeing the precursors of the non-communicable diseases very early in life, and so we have to deal and today tackle both issues. I think you will hear this panel not being all grim. Tremendous progress has been made, and I think there are solutions at hand, and so I think we'll hear some encouragement along with really the challenge that humanity is facing. We'll first hear from Dr. Margaret Chan. This is the determined, no-nonsense, get-it-done leader of the World Health Organization. Last year, we took stock of the 10th year of the Millennium Development Goals. It's a 15-year time span, but we took stock, and the focus was on the Millennium Goal number 4, on children's and maternal health, and are we reaching the goal of reducing the number of children who die before their 5th birthday by 4 million by the year 2015? But last year, 7.7 million children died. Margaret was instrumental in launching last year a global strategy for women and children's health, where stakeholders pledged over $40 billion to invest in the sector. And I'd like to ask Margaret, what are the 3 things that need to be done, that can be done, and that will move this dial?
Thank you, Josette. Good afternoon to all of you. If you look at, what can be done or scale up very quickly to make an impact in improving the health of children, let me give you 3 suggestions. Number 1, vaccine preventable diseases, especially for children. And we have seen how effective vaccine can be. They are safe, they are cost-effective, and they are the best buy that innovation can bring. Look at what polio and measles have done. The vaccines brought these two diseases almost to their knee. And we are very close to eradicating these diseases. And of course, there are new vaccines, vaccines for pneumonia, vaccines for diarrhea, and these are also two big killers for children. So if we can scale up, the knowledge and the action gap is what is preventing us to make huge progress. So if we can scale it up, that will make a difference. We have never seen, for the first time in 60 years, the under 5 mortality for children, we saw it went down to 8.1 million, the lowest ever in 60 years. So we should gear up with this momentum and not to let down. Now, the second thing we could think of and learn from is bed nets. Insecticide-impregnated bed nets for children in sub-Saharan Africa. I was reminded by scientists, well, don't worry about malaria, there's nothing more you can do, it's not going to get better, it's not going to get worse. I said, I cannot accept a status quo. Melinda, you and Bill gave us the challenge, remember, in one of the meetings, the Malaria Forum. So the good thing is, decision makers make the decision to flood, the households in Africa with insecticide bed nets. Of course, the importance of, combination, artemisinin combination treatment is important. Indoor residual spraying is important. But the fact of the matter is, when you talk to mothers in Africa, you ask them, what worries you as a mother? Malaria, malaria, and malaria. So that is really also, we are seeing great progress. We are seeing reports of reduction of 50% of cases and reduction of 50% of deaths. I put myself together with Techi Yamada from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and of course the special envoy of the Secretary General, Mr. Ray Chambers. We visited hospitals in Africa. To our pleasant surprise, we saw children's hospitals where they used to keep children, who are seriously sick with, malaria or in coma. The beds were empty. So that's the kind of things, we are seeing on the ground. The third thing is, let's not forget the importance of food and proper nutrition and balanced nutrition. Josette, what you said is correct. What we are seeing in the world is quite troubling. We see famine and feast coexist, meaning obesity. When we have 43 million preschool children obese, just look at the impact. Think of the impact on the health system, on the family. And that's why, we are working very closely with many actors and, of course, with Josette, your organization, to really promote, the first 1,000 days of life. If you get the nutrition right, you give a child a new lease of life. If you don't get it right, you squander their life because they cannot get the benefit of education. And the family, the society, cost is so high. Now, proper nutrition is extremely important, and let's not forget about the importance of diabetes, its relationship to diabetes. Let me finish by promoting one thing and giving you one concluding, a very powerful intervention. This is promotion. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life save lives. And it is free. And the mothers hold the IP. Nobody can take away the IP.
Well, thank you, Margaret. So just to frame this is a cup from WFP programs. This one happens to be from Rwanda. Today, 1 out of every 7 people, 1 billion people, will wake up and not know how to fill this cup. And 1 billion people are overnourished. It's the first time in history. Last year it crossed 1 billion nearly starving people, 1 billion overnourished people, all leading to the types of diseases and challenges that we're talking about today. Our next speaker, Melinda Gates, Margaret Chan told me she gets very nervous talking to her about health because she knows so much. My staff has found this too, because Melinda is often found in the villages of the world talking with the beneficiaries, recipients, and partners to their programs. And my staff tells me, Melinda, they've never seen anyone ask more probing questions, get to the solutions, and untie the knots of the problems better than you. What I would like to ask you is, from all of your travels, why are we losing so many children? And why this is no longer rocket science, is it? I'll ask this. We know what to do. Why can't we deploy these more? And what do you think we can easily scale up to make a difference?
Well, those are great questions. And I think, you know, first of all, it's forums like this. I mean, to think about the World Economic Forum having a panel about childhood health, to me, is an incredible thing. And you have to think about what's happened through even this forum that's allowed us to make progress. So let's go back a little bit in time. Without dating myself too much, if you go back in my lifetime, if you go back to 1960, there were 20 million children dying every single year. 20 million children dying. We got that number down to 12 million by 1990. Pretty good progress. Now we're down, as you said, to 8.1 million children dying every year. And the question that Bill and I keep asking ourselves, and I think many of the panelists here, is how do you accelerate the progress on the 8.1 so it goes even faster? So in the next 10 years, we can stand up here and say, you know, we have cut that number significantly. And I think it really comes down to three things. Number one, we need to invest in women. We know that mothers make an incredible difference in the lives of their newborn babies and in their children. We know that women, if a woman gets an extra $1 or $2 in income, she plows it right back into her family in terms of both health and nutrition and education. So the women are key in this. And there's so many easy things we can do. So number one is women. Number two has to do with really investing in these frontline health workers. This is a health worker that goes out and works in the most remote places in some of the countries that we're talking about. So where do these childhood deaths happen? Well, they happen in African nations. Places like Ethiopia and Nigeria have millions of their own deaths, and 2 remote states in northern India. These places, though, are scaling up frontline health workers. I was in Malawi last year. It's one of the poorest countries in Africa. They are working on the MDG 4 about childhood death by getting out these frontline health workers who take health messages out to women. Ethiopia is doing the same thing. India is doing the same thing. And here's how it makes a difference. We have to take those 8.1 million deaths and really break it down. 40% of the deaths are in the first 28 days of life. And what you tell a woman about the first 28 days is slightly different than what you tell her about once that baby crosses 28 days to 5 years old. So in the first 28 days of life, you say to her exactly what Margaret just said, through that frontline health worker, immediate and exclusive breastfeeding. Even if it's hot outside, your baby's going to get enough nutrition by being breastfed and keep that baby warm. We can reduce that first 28 days of life, we can reduce those deaths by somewhere between 20% and 50%. So that's the